Hello and welcome to Our Time. Be curious should be our motive for living, and Alison Kershaw has taken that saying quite literally and made a program for TV out of it. Hello, Alison.
Hi, Malcolm.
Why did you make a program called Be Curious?
Well, I work as a science communicator, and one of the things that I've noticed is that when we talk about go be a scientist, no one really talks about what that could actually look like.
How true.
And so I thought it'd be really good to talk to some actual scientists, some researchers and innovators about not only what they do, but how they got their job.
Right. It's called STEM, isn't it?
Yes, science, technology, engineering and maths. And sometimes you might see it with a second M, which stands for medicine.
Oh, STEM.
STEM.
And has that been a successful sort of group of subjects to teach in? It starts in obviously secondary school.
Well, STEM education can start in preschool.
Really?
Yeah, and what the research has found is that sadly, often by the end of primary school, a lot of girls have decided that STEM isn't for them.
Right.
And so part of the work that I do with Inspiring South Australia is to try and give children and parents opportunities to get hands-on with robots or drones or all sorts of things and meet actual scientists who do actual work here in Adelaide and here in South Australia.
And that's important too. So program coming up next time, I'm chatting with Rob Morrison.
Yeah.
Now, I know that the program called The Curiosity Show, which was on television for 20 years or so, definitely stimulated a lot of people to think about simple ways of doing simple things that could then be extended into much greater things. Did you see that program as a kid?
I did, and the name Be Curious is a little nod to sort of one of probably the first science shows, particularly for children, and we wanted to sort of continue that tradition of making great TV in South Australia and telling great South Australian stories and inspire not only people to perhaps want to pursue a career, but also just be really proud of the great work that's happening here in South Australia.
Oh, amazing. Well, I remember as a kid watching Professor Julius Sumner Miller on a program called Why Is It So?
Yes.
He'd talk with that and he'd do all of those experiments, but they were more sort of behind the bench in a classroom style experiment. Dean and Rob changed that completely to a much more modern approach. Now, what are you approaching? Because you're doing this series of programs for community television, but you're picking a series of things that happen here in North Terrace.
Yeah, so we decided to start on North Terrace because...
I like the word start, because that means you're planning for the future an even longer series, because you only made 4 episodes.
We only made 4 episodes. Right. I'm ever hopeful. But yeah, so we started on North Terrace because there's some really iconic buildings and not everybody knows what happens inside.
No, when you say we started on North Terrace, you didn't physically set up cameras on North Terrace and shoot North Terrace.
No.
You went into the buildings that are housed in North Terrace.
So we started down, I suppose, the far end, depending on where you're standing, but we started at SAMRI, which is the South Australian Health and Medical Research Institute.
Which a lot of people call...
the cheese grater.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's part of the Adelaide Biomedical City. So there's SAMRI, there's of course the new, well it's not so new now, but the new hospital and the new Women's and Children's is going to be there.
Yep.
And then of course right next to SAMRI is the new Bragg Centre, and we actually interviewed the lead physicist for the Bragg Centre because they're going to have proton therapy, which is a new type of cancer treatment.
Yes.
And it'll be the first in Australia.
Yes, isn't that wonderful?
It is wonderful.
So tell us the form of the program. First of all, it's a half-hour program?
It's a half-hour program, and we interviewed the various scientists and researchers about what they did. And then we got to go through doors that were like staff only and no unauthorised personnel.
Yes, isn't that the best thing about
so good.
making television? Because doors open to the most curious places and you get to meet the most wonderful people. That's what's really kept me doing this program because, well, I'm meeting people like you.
Yeah.
So what is your... and the other thing is the Space Centre.
Yeah, so we did SAMRI, the Museum of Discovery, MOD at UniSA, South Australian Museum, and then we went to the Australian Space Discovery Centre down at Lot 14.
Yep.
So we've interviewed everything from an actual rocket scientist to a cancer researcher to the taxidermist at the South Australian Museum.
Oh, is that the guy? The taxidermist?
Yeah.
He's done this incredible eagle that a friend of mine picked up, sadly, as roadkill on the way to Melbourne, and he's done the most incredible job of that.
Yep.
Why didn't you ask me? I would have brought it in.
Ah, yeah, show and tell.
Now, when you say we, who's we?
Well, I ended up hosting because we had limited budget and we didn't have money to pay anyone. But I got to work with the great people from Channel 44 and Lauren Hillman is co-producer.
She's the station manager.
She's the station manager and the production team were from 6'4" Productions who were so great because I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And they were very patient and...
But sometimes that's an advantage because in today's world of television, the days where everyone was sort of looking at the camera and being terribly, look at me, I'm on TV type stuff, it's become a much more natural medium.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're just chatting here, because you have no idea what I'm going to ask you,
no.
and I have no idea what you're going to answer. But that's, to me, like we're all sitting in a lounge room and we're having a chat.
Yeah.
Which is something that's sort of missing now in modern television because everything is so manufactured and so edited to be just that little bit of everything. You don't sort of get the human flow anymore.
Yeah.
Did you in your program?
I think so. What was really great, of course, is that these are people who are really passionate about their work.
Yep.
So it was really easy chatting to them because the other thing for me is they're just endlessly fascinating, you know.
Endlessly clever.
Endlessly clever, endlessly fascinating. I just love learning new stuff. So we got to go into the basement of SAMRI and go into the cryo tanks where thousands of samples are kept. We went behind the scenes into the minerals collection at the museum. We got to hold a piece of Mars, which was just very cool.
The best I can say, I did touch a moon rock in America.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, you know, the feeling of that, what goes on in your head when those things happen, the reality of what you're doing and where it came from is almost overwhelming.
Oh, it really bends your brain.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
I like that, bends your brain.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
What was the most brain-bending, take two. What is the most brain-bending thing you did, saw, held?
I think for me, the getting to understand what is going to be happening at the Bragg Centre,
right?
With the proton therapy,
because it could literally change human existence.
Well, the thing with a lot of cancers, particularly in children, because radiation is
damaging,
profoundly damaging, and with proton therapy, you can decide how far the protons go into the body and it will stop. Whereas with normal radiation, it's an X-ray, so it goes all the way through. So it damages everything in the line of fire. Yeah. So what that means for children with brain cancer is literally life-saving. But also things like prostate cancer.
Yes. I was thinking that when you were saying that, a friend of mine is about to go in for an operation.
Yep.
And, he said he's gone through all of the stuff that he can see on YouTube to try and understand what it is they're actually going to do. But in the end, you've just got to leave it to the doctors or the
Yep.
specialists.
Yeah.
But yes, I've read about this and heard about
Yeah.
this. So that'll be a very interesting program to watch.
Yeah. And I think the thing that's so remarkable is you think it's just like a piece of machinery, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that is happening in the basement where they're accelerating protons around in a loop, and then they get fed to a particular machine. And yeah, so the building is now open, but it is going to take them a year to install and calibrate the machine. So they're not actually going to be able to see patients until next year, because
Just want that time to be as quick as possible, really.
yeah,
don't you?
because that technology is
How many lives
so
will it
complicated.
save?
Oh, it's going to make a huge impact on cancers that may have been previously not treatable at all,
Yeah.
or that families may have had to travel to the US or Europe for treatment.
And is that where the invention came from? Is that where it was?
I think Scott Penfold, who we interviewed, did actually do some work in the US at
Right.
one of the first proton therapy places. So yeah, I think it may have started in the US.
Well, for people watching us in Melbourne who probably aren't aware of this particular part of North Terrace, it's part of North Terrace that used to be just a grassy knoll beside the railway station.
Yeah.
And in the last, 15, 20 years, buildings have just gone.
Yep.
And what's happening in there is absolutely world science-breaking technology and discovery. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
And it's all happening in little old Adelaide.
Yeah. And
Sorry, Melbourne.
And I think that's the story that we wanted to tell, because I've lived overseas and I came back to Adelaide about 25 years ago, and I remember a lot of people talking about, oh look, Adelaide's got really good universities, but like for a really good career you need to leave.
And that's an interesting point. And look, we'll be back in a moment to discuss that point and a whole lot more. Our guest is Alison Kershaw, and she's made a program that will be on community television called Be Curious. Now, Alison, what drove you to come up with the idea of making this program in the first place? Did some magical thing go, ding, I have to make a program about the amazing buildings and what happens inside of them on North Terrace, or?
I wanted to showcase the really cool and interesting stuff that's happening here in South Australia that some people know about, but I don't think enough people know about.
Right. But why did you want to do that?
Well, I'm the manager of a program called Inspiring South Australia, which works to connect community to science, because we want people to not only be interested in science and technology and engineering and maths, but also it would be great for people to understand the economics of those industries as well, because they employ a lot of people, and not only in terms of hospitals and treatments, but when you think about the space agency, Adelaide is the headquarters of the Australian Space Agency are in Adelaide. We beat everyone else, and it's here at Lot 14. And we are designing and building satellites that are going into space in the Adelaide CBD. And I don't think enough people know that.
No, I'm very keen to actually get some people from there to talk to on the program. But why did you end up doing what you're doing? How did it start for you? As a child, were you fascinated with science?
Yes.
What did you blow up at home? Come on, be honest, tell us the truth.
Well, yeah, there was a bit of that, but my dad...
Be specific. I love that. I blew up the hen house when I was trying to...
I didn't... It wasn't so much blowing up stuff, but I loved to understand how stuff worked.
Yep.
And my dad always had like a workshop or a shed, and he was also into model railways, so there's a lot of sort of electronics.
When our dads had those things, which sadly dads today often don't, there was always the opportunity to go and tinker with things.
Yes. Yeah, so at an early age I could use power tools and knew how to handle a saw and those sorts of things.
At an early stage for me it was a plane made out of wood.
Yep.
And it was a rotating thing that you could carve like legs of chairs and things with, but you'd pump it with your floor, with your foot on a thing that did that.
Yep.
I loved all that.
Yeah. And so, and then...
do you think kids are getting opportunities to do that? They're doing it at school now. We didn't used to do that at school. There's no such thing at school. Yeah. Reading, writing, arithmetic, and that was it.
Yeah.
But we did have those things to play with at home.
Yeah.
But I don't know that everybody has that anymore, and schools are starting to introduce that.
Yeah.
Is that part of the STEM curriculum?
Yeah, I think people are understanding that getting hands-on is really important. So a lot of schools now have workshops and maker spaces with 3D printers and laser cutters, and a lot of libraries have amazing STEM programs, everything from Lego clubs to even some have their own 3D printers and laser cutters and robotics clubs, and so you can learn about all that stuff, and it's either free or cheap.
Well, it's learning the new employment, isn't it?
Yes.
At the end of the day, that's actually what it is.
Yeah.
So it's to stimulate the thoughts, but primarily in the past, it's all been about boys doing this.
Yeah. And the reality is that the research shows that diverse teams build better things, because there's a lovely example that if you are at a barbecue and you run out of tomato sauce and you're a person who keeps your tomato sauce in the fridge, you only look in the fridge for replacements. But if you're a person who weirdly keeps their tomato sauce in the cupboard...
How could you?
How could you? You've obviously never lived in the tropics.
Exactly.
You only look for cupboard-based solutions. So what you want is fridge and cupboard people working together because your solutions exponentially just
You're not
grow.
suggesting that women might have a better way of doing it than men, surely?
No, they may just have a different way.
A different way.
And they may look at a problem from a different point of view.
In other words, what we need to develop are people with differing backgrounds, differing interests that can all come together and make a whole.
Yeah, because if you're trying to solve a problem, having people from of different genders, different cultural backgrounds, different educational backgrounds, engineers and artists and scientists all working together to solve problems, you end up with really great solutions.
Yes.
Whereas if you get everybody who went to the same university and did the same course with the same people, they're probably not going to... they'll probably come up with a solution, but it may not be as amazing as the diverse team. So we do want girls in STEM.
It's actually part of society, isn't it? When you think about it, what makes somebody want to be a doctor? What makes somebody want to be a farmer or an artist or whatever? But if you combine all of those things, there's so many things that we have in common about being human that suddenly you start to think the same way.
Yeah. And what was really interesting in this program is that often people started in one place and then sort of went through their life and met other people and had other opportunities, and now are doing something that they didn't even know was a job 10 years ago. And
well, that's you.
Yes, well, yeah.
So you've got a theatrical side to your life.
Yeah, I have performed and directed. And
what plays on stage?
Yes, I've directed plays in the Adelaide Fringe.
Did that help you with producing this program?
Yeah,
which is called Be Curious, by the way.
Yes.
I'm just dropping that again.
Thank you.
Be Curious on community television, only 4 episodes.
Only 4 episodes? Yes. So I think my background and my love of theatre just makes me love the telling of stories and the sharing of stories.
Who stimulated that?
Oh, I do remember going to see The Sound of Music at the Festival Centre.
Okay.
I think with Julie Anthony.
Yes, oh yes.
And it was just magic.
Yep.
And then I was that kid who would just get up on stage and have to be dragged off. And
But wasn't others in your family?
Yeah, my grandfather and my grandmother were both. My grandmother particularly was she was an actress in community theatre and appeared in a couple of films. My grandfather was a director and a stage manager, and I'm lucky enough I actually have some of his scripts with some of his lighting designs.
Isn't that wonderful?
So yeah.
But you've done the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, and so all the way through my life, I've had probably more of a sort of STEM-related job, but I've always found ways to get involved in the arts.
But see, that's the very point you were making before. The fact that you've had the science side of your life, but because you've got the other side, that's how you've brought together your resources to be also the host and the producer or co-producer.
Yep.
Was it difficult to research what you needed to find? What opened the doors for you initially?
What we were amazed at was how willing everybody was. We contacted the various institutions and they were like, great, how many people do you want to interview? What sort of thing are you interested in talking about? Because that would be great. And when would be good for you? And we're like, that's amazing. And we were given access to places the public don't normally go.
Yeah. Well, I know that is the most amazing thing.
It was just remarkable. Everybody we asked said yes, which apparently is completely unheard of.
Well, yes, but you know, back in the old days of TV, being on TV meant something. You know, people really wanted to be on TV. So people would move heaven and earth to be there. But it's not the same anymore that it used to be because most people are watching handheld devices rather than free-to-air telly. And it's a shame in a way because there's so much on free-to-air telly that is so fascinating now, particularly on community television. Yeah. Because today community television is very much like TV was at the beginning. Yeah. Because it's people who may not have a background or they may not have training because there was no uni courses like the courses happening here back in those days. But look, we'll waffle on about this in a minute and we'll be back to talk a little bit more with Alison before we say goodbye. Welcome back to OurTime. Alison Kershaw has been our guest. Alison, we're talking about your program, which is called
Be Curious.
And why were you and why did you make it?
I wanted to find out how people got the jobs that they had, because how do you become a researcher for growing plants in space? Because there's a research centre here in Adelaide who is doing exactly that. Yep. And I was like, how does that happen? Or how do you actually become a rocket scientist? Or how do you end up looking after the minerals collection at the South Australian Museum? So we went and found those people and we asked them. Or the new
cancer research.
Or the new cancer research. Or how do you... At MOD at UniSA, the exhibition that we were filming we did a few interviews with chronic pain researchers and about the work that they're doing and how they were using the exhibition to sort of help people understand and also explain the research that they're doing.
Right.
Because that's what MOD does, is it works with real researchers to help sort of bring their research out of the lab and help people understand what's going on.
Well, look, the good thing about this is, and particularly for younger people perhaps to be watching this program, it's really to open up their mind as to what you could be doing, because here it is, right on our doorstep.
Absolutely.
And I guess the answer to it all is take the STEM subjects at school. If you're not interested in anything in particular in life, take those subjects at school because they will open your mind to what could be your employment for the future. Is that more or less behind the program as well?
Yeah, I think the real kind of drive of the program is to be curious, because you might start somewhere and then think, oh, that's kind of interesting. I didn't know that was a thing.
It's like the song. It's not where you start, it's where you finish.
Yeah.
And we have to finish now, sadly. So thanks so much for being our guest. So next time on Our Time, we'd love to see you because we have something very special lined up. So keep yourself nice till next time we see you. Thanks, Alison.
Thanks, Malcolm.
Bye.